I only knew my mother for 15 years. She fought cancer from 7th grade until 10th grade, and then she died. She died before I had the chance to vent my adolescent rage. While most of my friends were trying to prove they weren't mama's boys, I missed my mom. So my visions of my mother are pretty idyllic. Arrested at the stage where I believe she was pretty wonderful. I did not go through the stage of being angry at her for being less than perfect, nor was I able to talk with her adult to adult and to be reconciled with the human being she really was. Yet she lives on in me. Her presence is with me. Sometimes I'm surprised by anniversaries, like when I turned 30 and realized that I had lived without her as long as I had lived with her. When I turned 35, the age that she had me, and through the miracle of marrying a woman with older children, I had my first grandchild. Or last year when I turned 50, and that's how old she was when she died. Her photo on the order of service is when she was about 25, only slightly older than my son. Her memory grows more distant, but there are indelible lessons that are impossible for me to unlearn. I want to share with you things I learned from my mother. And as I do, I want you to think of things that you learned from your mother. And if you want, you can share them after the sermon. The first thing my mother taught me was to appreciate other people, particularly my two sisters and brothers. I was the youngest of 4 children, and when we would squabble, my mom would say, "I was an only child for 11 years, and it was 15 years before I had a sister. You kids should appreciate each other." By the time I came along, she had said that so much that my older siblings were quite tired of it. So eventually we made a deal with her. If she ever said it again, she would have to pay us a nickel. If we fought, she would start to repeat herself. "When I was a child for only 11 years, I was an only child." We'd stop fighting and yell, "Nickel, nickel!" We thought we were getting over on her, but she only had to pay a nickel to get us to stop fighting. Another thing she said often was, "It takes all kinds to make this world." Usually this was said with a sigh. Usually it was when she was angry with someone. It was a phrase she said to herself to remind herself to be forgiving. Takes all kinds to make this world. But there's a deeper notion to this phrase. We lived in northern Michigan, and there were no black people in our county. But I remember going down to visit my grandma Davis, who lived in suburban Detroit, and she was always worried about the coloreds who were moving into her neighborhood. And my mother told me to pay no attention to Grandma Davis, that she was wrong. And I was about 5 years old, and that was the first time I was ever told that an adult could be wrong. But my mom was not always politically correct. In 1963, for Halloween, for her bowling team, which was sponsored by our grocery store, dressed as an interracial family. One dressed as an Indian and another dressed as a Mexican and so forth. And my mother put on blackface. About a week later, I saw my first actual black woman. Our store was on the highway, so occasionally someone who got lost would enter our store. And she came into the store, and I was about 3 years old, and I was curious. I walked up to her, ran my finger down the back of her leg, looked at my finger, and says, "It doesn't come off." At which point my dad turned about a few shades paler than he already was. But luckily, the lady just laughed and said, "No, it doesn't, sugar." Later in the 60s, my oldest sister brought back black men from home from college to meet the family. My mother reacted by buying books about the civil rights movement, saying to me, "I guess I need to learn more about this." She knew it takes all kinds to make this world, and it's sad to me that she never got to meet Gail. I know she would have enjoyed talking, and I know she would have enjoyed her grandson Ben and her great-grandson JJ. For my mother liked to play. She taught me it was important to stay young at heart. She was older than my friends' moms, yet they were surprised because she seemed so young. While other kids' mothers just sat on the beach, my mother would jump in the water and play ball and make splashing diving catches in the water. She took the 4 of us kids to see the Beatles in 1965. And on Christmas, when we kids were 10, 13, 18, and 20, she brought the family a strange gift. A red and blue toddler ball with yellow blocks of varying shapes, and you had to figure out what shape to put the hole into the block. I'm sure all of you have bought this for your 3-year-olds. And we just were appalled. We said, "How dare you buy us such a baby toy?" And she said, "Well, I was just thinking it'd be fun to see how fast we could do it." And I don't remember another gift we had, because we just had competitions to see who could put those blocks in that silly little toddler toy that Christmas. My mother was very religious. She took us to the Presbyterian church, and she taught me that Christianity was about love. She would often say, "Don't hate people, hate their wicked ways." In fact, she told us when we were angry to don't say to anybody, "I hate you." Say, "I hate your wicked ways." I only had to try this once on the playground to know that this is not a good strategy. But underneath the nerdiness, there is a meaning I have carried with me as I have journeyed to Unitarian Universalism. Every person has their inherent worth and dignity. We may not like what some people do, but that does not give us permission to hate them. It's important that whenever we are angry with someone, to separate the sinner from the sin, and also to remember that we indeed in that case might be the sinner. But we separate the sinner from the sin. You may hate the sin, but you love the sinner. You may dislike the behavior, but not the person. So if we are ever in a heated debate at a committee meeting and I say, "I hate your wicked ways," know that my mother is watching me. And even though my mother was very religious, she taught me that religion is a choice. When my brother was in the 8th grade, it was time to be confirmed in the Presbyterian church, and my brother said he did not believe the vows that he was going to be required to say. And this was probably a big embarrassment for her. She was one of the pillars of the church, the leader of Circle 2. Most kids join the church because their mothers made them. And I knew that my brother's friends were no more religious than he was. But they went along with the program and mouthed the words. But my mother told my brother she was proud of him for being honest and did not make him get confirmed. And so 3 years later, when I joined a church, I knew I had a real choice, and that was my choice and not my mother's. And the last thing my mother taught me was that dying is okay. I remembered a miracle of her last Christmas. She was very ill. Chemotherapy was taking its toll and not helping. And Dad had told the relatives not to visit because she was so tired. Of course, this prompted everybody to visit because they knew it might be their last time to see her alive. And because there were guests in the house, my mother perked up and lifted everybody's spirit. She just kind of rose up and was her old self for a couple of weeks. And then after the holiday, there was a steady decline to her death. And I remember one February afternoon, her best friend was coming to visit. And I always loved to be in the room when Audrey and Mom talked. The sheer volume and quantity of verbiage was vibrant. They just talked about everything and anything all the time. But this afternoon, my mom said I could not be in the room. She said Audrey has been reading about faith healing. I don't think I believe it, but she wants to give it a try. The picture on the thing is my mother's graduation from nursing school. She was a nurse. She knew the reality of her situation. But it was more important for her to give her friend the afternoon. Not for her own healing, but to accept the gift that her friend needed to give. One night I got the news from the hospital that she was probably not going to make it. I prayed as hard as I could. I read the Bible and cried till I had a religious experience. At the time, it felt like God giving me a hug. But now that I've been trained in psychology and social work, I'd call it a cathartic release. But whatever it was, I felt overwhelming calm. I knew things would be all right. My mother survived that night, and I got to see her the next day. When she died the day after, I knew dying was okay. Over the next few years, I saw my friends struggle to break free from their mothers, and I realized I was lucky. I will always have a perfect mother. Oh, I know she was human. And I saw my older siblings rebel against her. But my personal memories are pleasant. And now I'm seeing my peers worry about their aging parents, starting to experience the pain of that role reversal. And they have to deal with their parents as real people with real limitations. And that's why Mother's Day can be such a difficult holiday. Because it does not honor real moms. It honors the mythical, perfect mother. It honors that image that's only true on cardboard cards. It's an image that is idyllic but false. Because all our mothers are human, and all our mothers need our forgiveness as well as our gratitude. So this day, when we are called to remember our perfect moms, I want all of us to think about our real moms and love her as a real person. And remember that it takes all kinds to make this world. To love her, even if you hated some of her wicked ways. I've been a motherless child since I was 15. You kids should appreciate your... Oh, I think I owe you each a nickel. But rather than asking you to paying you a nickel, I'm going to ask you to put in your 2 cents. I'm going to ask your opinion of what images does Mother's Day create in your mind? Who is the human being that was or is your mother? And what have you learned from her?
Reminded me that my sister was being nursed. I asked my mother to let me nurse also, which she did. I was a couple of years old. And my response was, "Oh, Mom, it's only milk."
My mother lived in a tyrannical world dominated by my father, and who constantly wanted me to live his way. And I had a chance to leave. And she said to me very quietly, "Save yourself, go." That's how I came to Purdue.
I learned many things from my wonderful mother, but the one that comes to mind immediately is she would say, "Don't go to bed angry." And I try to live by that and make my peace with whatever had hired me that day.
My mother was Marjorie Hibernia Reynolds Davis, and she was about as free-spirited as you can imagine. She taught me not to be afraid to talk to people and experience other cultures, and even though she was more willing to eat strange food than I was, occasionally I'll try some.
My mother taught me to stay on the journey.
My mother taught me to love music, but the other thing she taught me most was that physical pain is more mental than it is like you can, because she didn't encourage her to slide all the other things. And you always knew she was in physical pain, but she wouldn't let that influence the way she treated other people.
Thank you. My mother Ruth passed away this past year, so it was my first Mother's Day without her. And she taught me many things about the simplicity of of life, just fixing things, inviting friends over, treasuring your family.
Let us all remember our mothers and share them with each other at coffee hour. Let us conclude our service by singing hymn number 32.